When we came over, it was in 1930, and right in the middle of Depression. So we were not wealthy people. That's about it. I joined the service in 1940. Gotta think here. 1943. No, that's not right. 43, I guess it was. Seemed like such a long time ago. I was working at a war plant making Bren guns. We were making parts for the guns for the soldiers. I was making guns, gun parts, and I thought I could do more by joining the service.
Why the Air Force instead of the Army or the Navy?
It was just more interesting, just elegant.
What was your family's reaction to you joining the military?
Oh, they were not happy.
What did your dad say? Never what? If you joined the Air Force, never what?
Never set foot back into this house.
My grandfather fought in World War I in Europe.
Yes, he did.
But he didn't like to talk about it.
This was in the old country, in Hungary, Romania, World War I, like she says. I went into the physical training and drill instructor. I was a gymnast to start with, and they figured that I would make a good corporal with the service personnel, the women, the WD's Women's Division. I think the girls did a lot of the clerical work and things that fellows' hands can't handle too well. And my hubby was, well, he wasn't my hubby at that time, but he worked in the compound, which was highly secret. Nobody was allowed in there except the compound people. It was under lock and key, password to get in and out. Training was a month in Trenton, Ontario. I was not sent overseas. Well, we were in barrack blocks, and they were very clean. We kept our rooms clean. You cleaned your own bedding and all sorts of things that women are expected to use, I guess. I was in an upper bunk only because I was small, short, didn't weigh much, so if I fell to the lower bunk, I wouldn't injure anyone. I didn't miss anyone except my mom and dad and older sisters. It was a natural thing for me to do. We had movie theater on the station. We had entertainment come in, and we did a lot of sports. We played baseball and basketball, and we played with one particular team from Mountain View, and the girl was 6'2", and me at 5 feet. I dribbled the ball and went right between her legs as she's guarding me. So I was quite useful in these games. we played basketball and baseball, and I was the pitcher, and a pretty good one. It was enjoyable as well as useful. I trained in Trenton, Ontario, and then I was posted to Aylmer. From Aylmer, I went to, gosh, I can't remember.
Was it Lachine? You went to Quebec, right? For a while?
Well, that's where I got, we were in Ottawa, actually, and we went over to Lachine, Quebec, but not for long, for extra training.
And you went to Aylmer, and then you went to Clinton.
Aylmer was my longest posting.
And then to Clinton.
Pardon?
And then to Clinton.
To Clinton, Ontario, right. And that's where I met a nice young man. And eventually we got married. So we were both in the service in the Air Force. We stayed married for 60, help me.
I have to do the math, Mom. So it was about 61 years.
And then he passed away. And he was the love of my life. And my father, the first year I was in the service, Christmas weekend came up, and I wrote to my father and I said, when I left your home, our home, you told me if I set foot over these doorsteps, don't ever come back. So I called him up just before Christmas and I said, Dad, can I come home? It's Christmas time and we've got a week off. And he says, if you don't come home, don't ever set foot over these doorsteps again. So I went home for Christmas. It was nice. We were going to church and I had city clothes, civilian clothes, and got dressed up for Christmas. And came downstairs and he looked at me and he says, up, you're in uniform now, be proud to wear it, go change. So I did, I put my military garb on. He was proud of me then. We had to get acclimated to the airplanes. So there was a little New Zealander, I think, pilot, and he was going to take me up. And me being a little bit on the cocky side, he said, have you ever flown before? And I said, oh yes. Wrong. So we went up over the Bay of Trenton, and he did flip-flops and just about anything that a little two-seater will do. And when I got off that plane, I was not walking on Earth. I was way up here somewhere. And I'd take real big steps. I felt so foolish because I couldn't help it. But just for lying, I got punished. I had never flown before. I had my sister in the service in the Air Force, Canadian Air Force, because she had married an American, but she joined the Canadian Air Force. And my husband, his older brothers were in the Princess Pats, And Christmas Day 44,
One, I think. 40.
they were captured and put into prison camp. And they were there. The one was killed over there, tortured to death. And the other one came back a broken man. So there were actually 5 of us in the service. My husband's 2 brothers. How many were there? Let me see. My husband's 2 brothers, one killed over there, one died a man. His spirit was gone.
And you and your sister.
And my sister. My first day on the station, I was in the drill hall giving class. And we were walking back to the mess hall for supper. And when I locked up, I walked out the door and I noticed 3 airmen were walking, I don't know how many feet ahead of me. And they kept slowing down until I caught up. And this nice young man said, "You're new on the station." And I said, "Yes." He says, "There's a dance over at the Corporal's mess tonight." He says, "I have a date, but I'll pick you up first and then pick up my date. I'll take you to the dance." And I thought, you egotistical old fossil. So I said, "No, thank you." There were 600 men and 90 women. And he's going to take 2 girls to the Corporal's dance. Not my type.
You actually saw him a little earlier in the day, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
And what did you say to your friend?
When we went to the mess hall, I said, "Oh, wow, who's that nice-looking, dark-haired fellow sitting over there?" "Oh," she says, he's dating a sergeant." I was a corporal below. So anyway, I said, "He's the man I'm going to marry." And she said, "Oh, no, you're not. He's got a girlfriend. She's a sergeant. She outranks you." He said, "Let's go to London tomorrow." I said, "What for?" He says, "Oh, just for a nice day." So I said, "All right." The bus goes by. London, it was 50 miles away. And we didn't have a car. He didn't have a car. He could have borrowed somebody's car, but no, he didn't want to let anyone know that we were going into London. So I said, "The bus goes by at 11. He says, "No, it's 11:15. I asked the fellas in the block." And I said, "No, it's 11. He says, "No, it's 11:15. So our barrack block was here. The gate was here. So, and his barrack block was here. So as we came out, because it was a good walk, it would take me 15 minutes to walk down to the gate. And we had to go side out and side back in. So as I walked out of my barrack block, there went the bus. he came out of his barrack block. I waved at him because I was thinking I was right, darn it. But anyway, walked to the gate, signed out. I said, well, what are we going to do? He said, well, let's walk. It's only 50 miles to London from where we were. So we started walking. And first off, there was a police car that went by. And he waved at us. And we're walking and walking towards London, naturally. And then a taxi cab came by. So he stopped. He says, where are you going, kids? And Jack says, we're going to London. And we were going to London. And we missed the bus. And he says, hop in. So we got in. And we drove probably 10, maybe 15 miles. And he says, well, I've got a call in, so I have to drop you off here in the middle of nowhere, farmland. And when we're starting to walk again, and the police car is coming back now, and he stopped and he said, where are you going? London. He says, hop in. So we got in, he turned around, and away we went towards London. And he says, well, this is the end of my route. We're about 3/4 of the way to London. And he says, now I have to turn around and go back again. So we started walking again. Saw a farmer in the field and he's waving at us. I thought, well, no car. So we'll just walk. Wore off my shoes, I think. Anyway, taxi cab came back, picked us up, took us in. He says, where do you want to get off? And he said, oh, at some restaurant. Well, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but we got out and started walking, and he wanted, the taxi driver wanted to know where we were going. And he says, well, I'd like to find a jewelry store. And I looked at him and I said, a jewelry store for what? And he said, well, I'd like to look at some rings. He did. I said, you didn't even ask me if I would be engaged to you or anything. What are we doing? And he said, just never mind. So we stopped in front of Burke's jewelry store back in the 40s. And we walked in. I said, what are we going in there for? He said, I want to look at some rings. And I was just flabbergasted because it hadn't been that serious where I would think about an engagement ring. My goodness. Still the same diamonds, but it's being reset. So we went in and bought a ring. And there went the sergeant, Jack's sergeant. We went into a restaurant to have a cup of tea. And he says, you know, no point in carrying this around. And I said, no way. He says, no. He says, let's put it on. Well, it's a restaurant with a row of booths here and a row of booths here. And they're all filled up with service personnel. And he says, "Give me your hand under the table." How romantic is that? So I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, we don't want to carry this around. Let's put it on." So I put my hand under, and he put the ring on. By the time we got back to the guardhouse, that's what it was called, where you went in and out, signed in and signed out. And by the time we got back, we had a little hostess house where two little old ladies used to run it and serve us tea and cookies. So they had a little party set up for us. And they all clapped when we came back. Felt like a silly old fool. So anyway, we got engaged. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I had a nice friend, Nina Ellis, her name was. And I said, "We've got a long Easter weekend. Why don't we go hitchhiking? And we'll go to New York." Now, I had no idea how far New York was from Clinton, Ontario. So we decided we were going to go. So our little suitcase, small, because we had to walk. So we went to New York, and we got there, and wouldn't you know it, Nina got sick. Oh, me Lord. She got sick. Where am I going to take her? She's got diarrhea, she's got vomiting, and so we went to the, what was it called? For service personnel. And she did see a doctor, I remember that, and he gave her a prescription, and we didn't have much money, but we had our uniforms, and that paid her way. Yeah. So it was an interesting weekend. "You won't leave me, will you?" She was crying and carrying on. She was afraid I was going to go back to base by myself. Well, I no more try that one. So we stayed a couple of extra days. We were AWOL, reported AWOL, and you're in trouble. But we made it back all right, late, and what was it? The sergeant said, he says, you're on. Anyway, we were in trouble, big trouble, because we went AWOL. But we got out, talked our way out of it, and we had the doctor's prescription that we had to get. But they were wonderful. We didn't have to pay for a thing. The Americans were just really, really good to us. I can't stress it enough. Yeah. I had rheumatic fever, and supposedly I did get a pension after that, like $5 a month. That was a lot of money. I still have my uniform, by the way.
Still fits.
Hmm?
It still fits.
It still fits. Yeah. Not too many people can say that. No. Well, my war medal and the service medal, they're on my uniform.
Well, you got out when John was born, but why Dad got out? This is kind of interesting.
He had to buy his way out. I still have the receipt. He had to pay $125 because he was posted to
Whitehorse? Was it Whitehorse or?
Whitehorse, Yukon. I had gotten out after the war, and but he had taken a posting to Whitehorse up in the Yukon, so he couldn't get out of it. And I was pregnant, and he says, I don't want to take you up to the Yukon where you have to pay for your drinking water, $1 for drinking water for a pail, and 25 cents for wash water. So he says, I can't take my wife up there. So it cost him $125 to get out of that posting. That's about it. Yeah.
And when did your service end?
Oh, God. Can't remember.
We got married in 46. You were still in the service when you got married.
Yeah. It was 46.
So right after you got married?
Yeah. June the 11th, I had John. I was out of the service then. My, that was a long time ago.